Hello, dear students. I welcome you all on behalf of Sri Jayendra Rank Zone classes. Dear student, we are in a continuation of the chapter that is organism and population, and we are going to deal with today one of the interesting topic that is a population interaction. Till now, we have already discussed about the population attributes, the how the particular different levels of organization are there. Okay, what are the adaptation, what are the major biotic factor, how the response occur to that factor, that all things we have discussed. Now how the two population interact, that we are going to discuss here today. So the interaction between members of different population are based on three factors. Actually three factors are there which ultimately define that the interaction will occur between the different population or not. One is requirement and mode of updating food. Okay, so if food is limited, obviously the different population will be there, they will try to get that food, and based on that they need to interact. Okay, same way for nature and shelter or a space required, and same way for the habitat of the species like aggregation, breeding, and for this purposes also they can particularly interact. So there is a no known natural habitat on earth that is inhabited by just by a single species. There is no one particularly you can say natural known habitat. So such a situation is ever inconceivable, means it is not possible. So for any instance, the minimal requirement is one or more species on which it can feed. So for any species, the minimal requirement is what? One or more species, means interaction, for interaction to occur, there should be a minimal requirement of one or more species on which it can feed. Even if we talk about autotrophic organism, like plant species cannot survive alone. It depends upon the decomposition activities of soil microbes, that is breakdown of organic matter in soil to fulfill their inorganic nutrient requirement. So plants are also not living alone. They are also dependent on some microbes which are living near about that soil for the carry out that particular completion of the nutrient requirement and their activities. So plants also depend on animal agents for their pollination as well. Microbes for the decomposition process and other activities like nitrogen requirement or nutrient requirement, and animals for the which one we can say uh, for the pollination. So in nature, animal, plant, microbe do not and cannot occur in isolation. So this is the one of the important point that we should mark. That we should remember that in nature, in nature, animals, plants, and microbes do not occur in isolation. They interact in various ways to form a biological community. Okay, so they do not occur in isolation, and they interact in a various ways to form a biological community. And they interact in various ways to form a biological community. Okay, so this is the thing which occur between the different populations, and community is formed. Now this type of interactions, if we talk about this type of interaction, it is known that this type of interactions where population of two or more different strains interact, where populations of two or more different species more different species interact are called interspecific interactions. So these are known as interspecific interaction, and it is known that such interactions are of three types. Such interactions are of three types. Number one, that is beneficial, means it is a positive interaction, and this positive interaction give benefit to any one species or any one population. Okay. Second, it can be detrimental, means it is a negative interaction where it is negative for one species, it is harmful for one species. And third is neutral. Neutral means neither harmed, neither harmed nor benefited, okay, to one of the species or both. So it is neither harm, okay, nor benefited to any one of the species or either to the both. Then such type of, so if two populations are interaction, two different species are interacting, then either it is beneficial for both, either it will be beneficial for one, it can be detrimental to both, it can be detrimental to any one, and same with the neutral can be any for any one of them or both. So if we talk about such interaction, this interaction are of different type, and if we talk about such interaction, it is known that this interaction are of different types. Suppose, so type of interaction, if we talk about the first, the competition, and if species A and species B are interacting, then in competition it is harmful to both species. Okay. Second is, we can say, the predation, and in predation it is beneficial to one and harmful to the another one, or positive interaction for one and the detrimental to another one. Third, in parasitism, it is beneficial to one and again it is harmful to the another one. The fourth type of interaction is mutualism, where it is beneficial to one and beneficial to another one. Fifth is proto-cooperation, where also it is beneficial for both the interacting species. Sixth, if we talk, then it is a commensalism. And commensalism is beneficial to one, and the neutral means it is neither harm nor benefited to the another species. And the seventh is commensalism, where it is harmful to the one and neither beneficial nor harmful to the other one. So neutral is to another one. So such interaction if occur between the two species, then they have this different type of interaction. So now, first we are going to talk about the competition. Okay. So competition, if we talk, it is a process. Okay. And in a broad sense, it refers to the interaction of two organisms striving for same resource. Okay. So if the two organisms striving for the same resource, then competition can occur. So it is a process in which the fitness of one species measured in terms of its intrinsic rate of natural increase, means it is intrinsic rate to use the nutrients and get reproduced. is significantly lower in the presence of another species. So when the two interaction species interact, they compete for the same resource, the harm occur to both the species, and in this struggle, okay, this struggle between the two or more organisms for obtaining various requirements for the survival. Okay, so this occur here. So competition, in a broad sense, it is the interaction of two organisms striving for the same resource. Competition among the individuals of the same species for one or more common resource can occur. And a competition between the organisms of two different species can also occur. So based on this, it is of two type, that is in both, it is both, that is intraspecific, that is between the organism of the same species. Means if human is competing with the human, it is intraspecific. But if human is competing with the another species, or we can say dog is competing with the tiger, then is a interspecific. This is two different species between the organism of different species. Okay. If this occur, then it is known as interspecific. Okay. Now, in this, it is known that this interspecific competition or intraspecific, sorry, not interspecific, intraspecific, that is within a species between the organism of one species, is more acute because all organisms of the same species have a similar requirement for the food, space, light, water, shelter, and mate. So more acute means more common, easily observed. Okay, because they all are dependent on the same sources of food, space, light, and water. So intraspecific competition, if we talk, it is considered as a acute one. Whereas if we talk about interaction between the two species, that is known as interspecific competition. This interspecific competition occurs when organism of different species, when organism of different species belong to the same trophic level or have a similar feeding habit. They are dependent on the same food, and these two different species interacting, then it is known as interspecific competition. And in grassland, severe competition occur between the herbivore like rabbit, deer, bisons, etc., as all feed upon the grass. So this is the examples of the what interspecific competition. Now, when Darwin spoke of this particular struggle of existence and the survival of fittest in nature, he convinced that interspecific competition is potent source of organic evolution. So we remember interspecific competition is potent force in organic evolution. Okay, it is a potent force in organic evolution. So that is what interspecific competition. Now, for a competition for a zooplanktons between the visiting flamingos and resident fishes in South American lake occur. So, if you talk about this is obviously an example of interspecific competition. Okay, that is between what we can say here that the competition can occur between the closely related species for the same resource that are limiting, but also to the totally unrelated species. Here it is a competition. This example relates the competition between the totally unrelated organisms or species, where the particularly South American lake fishes compete with the visiting flamingos for the same food source, that is the zooplankton in the lake. So that is a, we can say it is a competition between totally unrelated species. Totally unrelated species. Okay. Now, it may be emphasized that competition is not noticed only when required commodity is in short supply. It is emphasized in competition that, and it is noticed that it occur only when commodity or requirement, food, shelter, anything is then in short supply or limited supply. Then competition occur between the two species or between the organism of one species. If a grass is in plenty and fulfill the need of all herbivores of that area, there will be no competition. or only we can say little, if at all it occur. Because there is a full availability of the grass is there and herbivore can easily feed, availability of the herbivore is meeting, then why they will compete? But if there is a limitation, then they need to compete. So carnivorous animals like tigers, if we talk, and leopards, if we talk, they compete for the common prey. Obvious. Why? Because the common prey for them is limited one. In forest, shrubs, herbs, trees are that are the different plants which compete with one another for the water, inorganic nutrients, sunlight, and for the insects that bring about pollination, and for animals that bring about dispersal. Okay, so in trees also we can say they compete for the nutrients, water, sunlight, and for insects that bring about pollination, and for animals that bring about a dispersal. So such a way the competition can occur. Now, no two species can occupy the same ecological niche. It is known that no two species will occupy the same ecological niche. They are not found in a same ecological space and live together in a biotic community, because each species has their own tolerance power, each species has their own profession, each species they has their own food habits that is separate from the other species. So any two species cannot have an ecological niche. An ecological niche is what? It is a profession. It is profession or a tolerance power. If suppose a particular organism producer in this particular area, then it is a ecological niche of that particular area. Okay, so two species cannot occupy the same ecological niche, and they cannot live together in a biotic community. So thus can be further explained by the Gauss principle, Gauss competitive exclusion principle. So here we are going to understand that competition can occur and take two forms. Either it can be competition exclusion or it can be competition coexistence. First, we are going to talk about the competition exclusion principle. And in competition exclusion principle, it is given by Gauss, and we call it as a Gauss principle. And Gauss worked on the two species of paramecium. Okay. And Gauss work found that if two species of paramecium, that is a paramecium cordatum and paramecium aurelia, if we talk, they were grown together in the same culture medium. If they were grown together in the same culture medium, initially both increase in number because they will get a nutrient. But when the nutrient availability will be limited, the one dominant will grow and the recessive one decline. And it is shown that Paramecium cordatum population decline and eliminated by the superior species, that is the Paramecium aurelia. Why? Initially they are growing. Why? Because there is a unlimited, but when there is a limitation of the food, they will compete and the dominant will survive and the recessive one will be excluded. And here, which one is the recessive one? Paramecium cordatum. So this is showing that if two species are occupying the same ecological niche or for the same resources, competing for those common resources, then superior type will exclude or eliminate the inferior type, means the inferior species is going to be excluded from that particular area. And in this experiment, you observed this occurred in the 16 days span particular one. Okay, so this is the one example of the what we can say the competition exclusion. We remember this is one of the important example of the competition exclusion that you should remember. So now if we take another example, there are some circumstantial evidences that support exclusion of species due to competition. There are some evidences. And these evidences include the introduction of goat result in exclusion of Abingdon tortoise from the Galapagos Island. Okay, introduction of goat resulted in the exclusion of Abingdon tortoise. Okay, so tortoise, how this occur? Because when the goat are introduced, goat have a better browsing capacity for their food. So due to their presence of a better browser, that is goat, the Abingdon tortoise will migrate to the another area, and because of this we can call it as the what, a particular exclusion of this Abingdon tortoise is occurring from that area, because the Galapagos has a better Galapagos island where goats are a better browser. We remember goats are better browsers. And apart from this same interaction occur, that is the competitive exclusion occur between the Balanus and the Cathamelus on the rocky coast of Scotland. So on rocky coast of Scotland, here you will see that the larger and competitively superior barnacle is Balanus. So Balanus is larger and competitively superior barnacle. Whereas if we talk about the Cathamelus, is the smaller barnacle, smaller and competitively inferior barnacle. So here the Balanus is dominant, so it excludes the Cathamelus, that is a smaller one, and this Balanus it is known as dominates the intertidal area. It dominates intertidal area. Okay, and it is observed by a Connell's. So it is also known as Connell elegant field experiment, which is done by Balanus and Cathamelus by using by the Connell. Okay, so this three example, Goslow, goat example, goat introduction of goat, and this Cathamelus barnacle example. This all example introduce or explain us that when if a competition is occurring, there is a chances of the what a competitive exclusion. But apart from this, another form can be also be observed, that is a coexistence. Okay, research studies do not support such gross generalization of above competition where one species is eliminated. Research studies do not support that competitive exclusion or elimination. So they point out that species-specific competition might evolve a mechanism that promote a coexistence. So it is also observed that species facing a competition might evolve mechanism to live in the same niche by changing the feeding time or foraging pattern, that is a resource partitioning. Okay, so they can promote a coexistence within the exclusion, and in this a such mechanism is resource partitioning or resource sharing by choosing a different time of feeding, that is a different feeding time, and the foraging or observing getting different getting food getting techniques. So if different species coexist in spite of being competitors, it is because they are specialized or adapted differently. They have taken a different adaptive strategies and they have developed a different feeding habit to obtain the same resource. Because of this, they are coexisting. And that is why Darwin found that 14 species of finches coexisting in a Galapagos Island. One of the important example. It is a one of the important example that Darwin found that 14 species of different finches or finches, they are found to coexist in Galapagos Island due to the development of different feeding habit. They have developed that different feeding habit so they can survive. And I hope you have studied this example in the evolution part. Now, several plants grow together by sending root to the various depth. So these are also a mechanism of getting a different food. And same way, the more examples are cited below to explain the coexistence aspect of competition. And the another example is five closely related species or warblers. So here these warblers, which are five closely related species of warblers. Warblers are what? A birds. They are a number of small insectivorous songbirds that typically have a warbling song. Okay. And this particular five species of these related warblers avoid competition by changing their foraging pattern. They particularly change their foraging pattern. Okay, that is a what a foraging means, a searching widely for the food or particularly different food structures. Okay, so they will particularly change their foraging pattern, and such way they can survive. Same way, trifolium plant is their model is best explained both exclusion and coexistence. They can survive in a particularly better way. Habitat diversification means they also reduces the competition. and the example is tribolium and uh, Oreza film. These are the particularly habitat diversification. They particularly change their habitat and such a way they can particularly coexist. Okay, so here the given warbler example, this is important one, and the previously we have given example in the previous slide of the uh, 14 finches. That is one of the example. These two example are of not importance. Okay, you will, if you will not remember these two example, then it will be fine, no issue. Now after this, it will be also seen that competition release can also occur. So evidence for a competition exclusion is easy to demonstrate in laboratory experiment as done by the Gauss. To evidence for such competitive exclusion occurring in nature is not always conclusive. So evidence for the occurrence of a competition in nature comes from what is called a competition release. And what is competition release? There occur a dramatic increase in a population of the less distributed species in a geographical area when a superior competitor is removed exponentially from that area. If we remove the superior competitor or a superior species from that particular area, the less distributed species in a geographical area will show their increase in a population. Why? Because the superior one is removed from that area. And plant and herbivores are more adapted than the carnivores. Plant and herbivores are more affected than the carnivores. So resources need not be limiting for a competition to occur. Okay, competition, if there is a competition to occur, resources need not be a limiting for a competition to occur, as a feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to the inhibitory presence of other species in the presence of what we can say the particular unlimited food. Then this type of competition is called interference competition. Okay, so it is not that competition will occur when resources present in environment are limiting only. It is not true. Where resources are unlimited, then also competition can occur when there is a inhibitory presence of the one dominant species, and that is called a interference competition. Okay, in competition release, what we are going to do? We are going to remove the competitively superior one. But if competitively superior one inhibiting the or reducing the particularly feeding efficiency of the another reduced species, then it is a interference competition. So from such these things, it is clear that competition is best defined as a process in which the fitness of one species is significantly lower in the presence of another species. In general, herbivores and plants appear to be more adversely affected by competition than the carnivores that we have discussed. And from this, we have understood that from this, we have understood that competition can occur or lead to competition can occur or lead to one between closely and unrelated species. Closely and unrelated species. Second, exclusion and coexistence. And third, when resources are limited or unlimited. Okay, this way the competition can occur. Okay, so this is the thing where competition can occur. Okay, so this is first interaction that we have completed, that is a competition. Now we are going to talk about the other interaction, that is a predation. And in predation, only one species we call, that is a predator, benefits, and the interaction is detrimental to the other species, that is prey. So we can say it is a plus minus interaction where one species is benefited and one species is getting harmed. So it is a type of interaction in which members of one species capture, kill, and eat up members of the other species. So here killing will occur. So killing is necessary. The prey is going to be killed, and the energy of a prey is transferred to the predator. So predation is a natural way of transferring energy fixed by a plant to a higher trophic level. Okay. So here the species that capture is called a predator, and the other that captured and killed it is a prey. So most of the animals except scavengers, animals eating what the dead animals only. If we remove that, otherwise most of the animals are the predators. Okay. Now, even certain plant, if we talk, like a Nepenthes, Utricularia, Dionia, it is not Oenia, it is a Dionia, Drosera, this all are, if we talk, this all are insectivorous plant. So they are a type of predators. They catch, digest insect in addition to their autotrophic mode of nutrition. They are also able to perform autotrophic nutrition. They are also able to perform a photosynthesis. But apart from this, the predator as a insectivorous plant, they act as a predator and they catch and digest the insects. So they are insectivorous or a carnivorous plant. Now, prey-predator relationship here is like competition is an interaction of ecological importance. It is also of ecological importance. And prey-predator relationship it is utilized by man in biological control of pest. In the microbes and human welfare also we have studied one topic that is biological control. In that also we release the particular insect biopesticides. We release the insects to predate the particular insect which is harmful to that field. And here we have studied this example that Opuntia was removed or it acted as a weed and it is weeded out or removed in Australia with the help of a natural herbivore of Opuntia, that is a Cactoblastis cactorum, which we call a cochineal insect. So when we introduce cochineal insect, they will remove this weed that is Opuntia from the Australian fields. So that is one of the importance biological control. Okay. So these things can occur. Some more example if we take, we know that if we take about the predator and prey, and if we take a simple example, predator is tiger and prey is deer. That is the first example. The second example is the sparrow which feed on the seeds. So seeds are prey. Third example is the animals, and animals are herbivores and the plants are prey. So such a way the predator-prey relation can be observed. Simple examples. If we talk about another examples, you will see that red locust menace was brought under control by the Mauritius by Mina. Okay. So Mina will reduce the red locust. Okay, it is not much important example, but you should understand. Mosquito larvae are eaten by the larvicidal fish, that is Gambusia. This is an important example. Gambusia eat the mosquito, and particularly their spreading can be understood. Another example is in the rocky intertidal communities of the American Pacific coast. You will see that the starfish pigaster is an important predator. Starfish pigaster is an important predator. Okay, so it is known that in the rocky intertidal communities of the American Pacific coast, the starfish pigaster is an important predator, and it is known that in this, when all starfish, that is pigaster, were removed experimentally, were removed experimentally from an enclosed from an enclosed intertidal area more than 10 species of invertebrates become extinct within a year because of interspecific competition. So due to interspecific competition, the interspecific competition between these 10 species of invertebrates does not occur up to which the starfish is present, because starfish is the predator of them all. So they will beneficially, they happily live when the disaster, a dominant one, is there. But when we remove the disaster, this 10 species of invertebrates come into the action and they will compete with each other and they will die. Okay, so within a year, all this will be lost. So that is the example of the what a particular. Uh, okay, so here, what is happening? The species diversity of this invertebrate is maintained when there is a particular predator is present. So we can say here in intertidal area disaster. Here we can write one more thing, that disaster maintains species diversity in a community. In a community. Okay. So if you talk about the role of predation, in predation you will see, if important role in ecosystem, you will see that the transfer of energy in ecological sense, herbivores are not very different from the predators because they are particularly dependent on the plants. So they are taking energy from the plants. Okay, then herbivore and carnivores take energy from the herbivore. Such a way the transfer of energy occurs due to the predator-prey relationship. The another thing is the keeping the prey population under control. So it is known that it can help to control the prey population. Okay, we can reduce the excessive increase in the prey population. So here, exotic species become invasive and spread fast because the invaded land does not have its natural predators. So if invaded land does not have any natural predators, then and then only the exotic species become invasive and spread fast. If we take such example, the prickly pear cactus introduced into Australia in early 1920s. This prickly pear cactus, which was introduced in early 1920s, caused a havoc by spreading rapidly into millions of hectares of resident. And this prickly pear cactus is an invasive cactus which was introduced in the Australia and was brought under control by the introduction of cactus feeding predator, a moth from the natural habitat into the country. So to keep a prey population control, if we take an example, you should remember that invasive prickly pear cactus, invasive prickly pear cactus brought under control by introduction of cactus feeding predator, that is a moth, in Australia. In early 1920s. Okay, so here this cactus control, that prey is controlled by the introduction of moth. The another example, if we take, rabbit population in Australia increased tremendously because the land does not have its natural predator. So here the red foxes in the New Zealand become a top carnivore due to the absence of natural top carnivore. Okay, so they are the top carnivore as well. So this is the role of predation. Apart from this, predators help to maintain the species diversity. We have seen example. It is help to maintain the species diversity in a community, as they can reduce the intensity of competition among the prey species. Suppose the example is that if a disaster is a predator and if it is removed, resulted in the extinction of more than 10 species of invertebrates in American Pacific coastline due to the interspecific competition that we have understood. Then another thing is the term prudent predator evolved. And prudent predator explains that predator does not exterminate its prey by overexploitation. So predator in nature, it is a prudent. Means if the existence of prudent predator is because if too efficient predator overexploits its prey, the prey might become extinct and it will result in extinction of the predator, also due to the lack of food. So if prey will extinct, the predator is going to be extincted. So such thing is known as, so it does not exterminate or overexploit the prey. Predator will not overexploit the prey. That is a prudent predator mechanism. Now, if we talk about the evolution of some of the defense mechanism by in the prey or the defense adaptation in the prey to particularly remain killed by not getting killed by the predator. So for this defense, prey species, if we talk, have evolved various adaptations, and this various defenses which is adapted developed by the prey is to minimize or challenge the impact of predation. And here the one example is the camouflage. Camouflage is defined as a cryptic appearance of an organism similar to object of an organism similar to object found in surrounding environment. Okay, so when the cryptic appearance occurs to the object which is found in the surrounding to protect itself from the predator, it is known as camouflage, and it occurs in some species of insects and frog to avoid their easy detection by the predator. And if we take about the example and their activities, in grasshopper it is, that is Erantia rectifolia, it resembles a green leaf. So it avoided from the, or it get not get killed from the predator due to its resemblance to the green leaf, and it will show a cryptic appearance to their surrounding green leaf. Same way, praying mantis, if we talk, that is a mantis religiosa, which is also prevented from a predation by resemblance to the green leaf and the twig, and it will look like, so predator will not identify. Same way, dead leaf butterfly, that is a Phylocrania paradoxa. The scientific name is no need to remember. It also resembles the dead leaf, and due to which it can be prevented from the predation. Stem with stick insects are there, which is particularly resemble the dead leaf, and they will look like a stick like. So such a way they are also particularly prevented from the predation. The second thing where the defense, second type of defense is the monarch butterfly. Okay, and it is a particularly, we can say, the example of the chemical defense, where monarch butterfly is a well known for its general unpalatability to its predator bird. Means monarch butterfly, if we talk, it is avoided by its predator. It is avoided by its predator due to the presence of special chemical in its body, which make it highly distasteful. Highly distasteful. So it cannot be pelleted or eaten by its predator, and it is avoided. So this insect is able to sequester the highly toxic glycosides. Okay, these insects from the present in the milkweeds on which caterpillar stays feed. So they get these particular toxic chemicals from the milkweeds. Now their larvae develop on milkweed and providing the protection to a plant against the herbivory. And this larva get this particular, we can say, a chemical. So chemical is acquired by monarch butterfly from the poisonous weed during the caterpillar stage, that is the toxic glycosides from the milkweeds. Okay, so this become highly distasteful and it is prevented from the predation. The another example is highly poisonous cardiac glycolides are produced by the calotropis. And nicotine, caffeine, quinine, strychnine, opium are other means of chemical defense in plants. So these are produced by the plant for their defense from the predator or the herbivore. So such thing can occur. Apart from this, the mimicry can occur. In mimicry also it is known that it is resemblance of one organism to another. It is the resemblance of one organism to another or to the natural object among which it lives. So among the organism which it lies, so it resembles to that another organism. Okay, actually not to the natural object. Yes, to the natural object we can say also, but mainly to the other organism. And this resemble to the another organism, and that secure concealment, protection, or some other advantages. And during mimicry, the subject is known as mimic, the particular organism which is resembling the another organism which is showing mimicry, it is known as mimic or mimictic, and the object it copies is called the model. It is called the model organism. Okay, such a way that by these differences the predation can be avoided. Now after this, the competition we have discussed, predation we have discussed, the third interaction which we are going to discuss here, that is a parasitism. And if we talk about parasitism, it is a relationship between two organisms of different species, usually differing in size, in which one organism spent a part or whole of its life on or in the body of the other organism. We remember on or in the body of organism. If one organism spends a part of whole of its life and get nourishment and shelter from that, then it is known as parasitism. So here the organism which is spending its part of life or whole life on the other organism and getting a nourishment and shelter, that organism is called as parasite. And the organism from whom this particular nourishment and shelter is taken, that is a host. So here the parasite host mechanism is, and in this the parasite is getting benefited and the host is getting harm, or it is detrimental to the host. So here if the parasite keep on using this host, this can also lead to the depress the growth of the rate of population of the host population. The growth rate of host population get depressed or reduced, or may reduce the total size of the host population. The size of the total size of the host population can also be reduced. Okay. Okay. So this is the thing which is occurring in the parasite host mechanism. So here parasitism is a relationship between two organisms Okay, and one is getting benefited, one is getting detrimental to his. And parasitism has evolved in so many taxonomic groups from the plant to the higher invertebrates. Okay, now parasites are smaller generally, majority of them are host specific. Okay, means they can parasitize only one single species of host. They are dependent on the single host only, so they are host specific. And both parasite and host tend to co-evolve. It is need that there is a need of a co-evolution between these two. Okay, so here this occurs. So high reproductive potential. So if you talk about the characteristic or adaptation which are shown by the parasite, and if we talk about in accordance with the lifestyle, parasite have evolved a large special number of adaptations to particularly capture the prey. And so the parasite, if you talk, the parasite will show high reproductive potential, loss of digestive system because it is not going to get a directly food, loss of unnecessary sense organ, presence of specific sucking and adhesive organ to particularly catch the prey, and some of their characters, but they have poor means of dispersal. They cannot disperse easily, so they have poor means of dispersal. And apart from this, it is also known that parasite have complex life cycle. They have complex life cycle. So complex life cycle means it involve one or two intermediate host, one or two intermediate hosts or vectors to facilitate parasitism. Okay, so parasite have a complex life cycle that involve one or two intermediate host or vector, and it facilitates parasitism of its primary host. So if we take a example, we take an example of human liver fluke. That human liver fluke, which is a trematode parasite, depend on two intermediate hosts, that is a snail and fish, to complete its life cycle. Same way, malarial parasite Plasmodium need vector, that is mosquito, okay, to spread to the other host. Okay, so this is the thing which is seen in the particularly, we can say, the adaptation shown by the parasite. Now, on behalf of this parasite, this adaptation are shown, but the host will also develop some impact. So what will the impact on the host? So that we need to discuss. So impact of parasite on host. So if we talk about this impact, here this parasite reduce survival of host, then also reduce growth and reproduction of host, also reduce growth and reproduction of host. Okay, that is also getting reduced. Then reduced host population density, and they render host more vulnerable to more vulnerable to predation by making it physically weak. Okay, so this is the thing, impact occur on the particularly parasite. Now it is known that depending on their occurrence with the host body, parasites are of two major types. Parasites are of two types. If we talk about this, then the first is the ectoparasite. Now this ectoparasite, they feed on external surface of host. They feed on external surface of host organism. Example if we take, then lice on human, tick on dogs, copepod on marine fish, Castuta on hedge plant, that is a non-green plant on hedge plant, and it has lost its chlorophyll and leaves in the course of evolution. That is a non-green plant. Castuta is a non-green plant because it loses chlorophyll and leaves in the course of evolution. So that is ectoparasite. Another group is a endoparasite. An endoparasite, parasite live inside the host body. Parasite live inside host body. And in host body, it can live in a different site like liver, kidney, lung, red blood cells, etc. And here the life cycle is more complex due to extreme specialization of different organ. Okay, so here the life cycle is more complex. And endoparasite mainly emphasize on their reproductive potential. Means they try to enhance their population in the host body. So because of this, it is considered as a more emphasized on the reproductive potential and have more complex life cycle because the organs, different organs are involved. Okay. Now here we remember that the female mosquito, which is a particularly need our blood for its reproduction, it is considered as a parasite because it never it cannot be considered as a parasite. So we remember one important example, that female mosquito needs our blood for its reproduction, but it is not considered as parasite because it never spent even a short duration on or in body of host as malarial parasite do. Because of this, it is not considered as a parasite. Now after this, in this parasitism, we are going to discuss one new term, that is hyperparasites. We have understood ectoparasite and reserve. Now what are hypoparasite? So it is known that when a bacteriophage which are parasite over parasitic bacteria. So when bacteriophages are parasite over the parasitic bacteria, then this bacteriophages which are parasite over the parasitic bacteria, then because of this they are parasitic on the parasitic bacteria, because of this they are known as hyperparasite. And same another example, if we talk, it is known that Pasteurella pestis is parasite on rat flea, which is rat parasite. So rat flea depend on the rat, and Pasteurella pestis is particularly dependent on the what rat flea. So it is also hyperparasitism. And last in this parasitism, we are going to talk about the brood parasitism. Okay. So brood parasitism. So it is a special kind of parasitism which is found in birds. Okay, it is found in birds. And in this, if we take example, parasitic bird lay its egg in the nest of the host, that is the other bird, and the rest, and let the host incubate them. So if the bird lays its egg in the nest of the another host and it allow to incubate with the eggs of the another particular host egg, then it is known as brood parasitism. And if we take an example, the cuckoo, that is a parasite, lay its egg, lay its egg in crow's nest, in crow's nest, that is host nest. And it is known that during course of evolution, egg of parasitic bird. So cuckoo lay its egg in the crow's nest during the course of evolution, and during the course of evolution, egg of parasitic bird have evolved to resemble the host egg in size and color to reduce the chances of host bird detecting the foreign egg and ejecting them from the nest. Okay, so because of this the evolution occur, and the parasitic bird egg will resemble like the host egg in size and color, and due to this the host will not eliminate these eggs and by considering it as a foreign egg. Okay, so such a way the parasitism occur in case of bird, it is known as brood parasitism. Okay, so that is all about the what parasitism which we have discussed. Okay, now competition, commensalism, protocooperation, and amensalism is remaining. Okay, so that we will cover in the new lecture. Okay, in today's this lecture we have completed. This is the first lecture, that is population interaction part 1, and in this we have completed about the competition, okay, predation and parasitism. Okay, remaining other 4 interaction we will continue in this separate lecture. I hope you understood. Thank you.